forecast for the eastern U.S., it's cold, and it's going to get colder. That's what's first up this Wednesday on CNN Student News. Some are calling it Snowmageddon. Some are saying they're Snover it. High temperatures yesterday were 10 to 25 degrees lower than they usually are. And an even colder blast of Arctic air was forecast to roll in today from the Midwest to the eastern seaboard. Hundreds of thousands of people had their power knocked out by ice. At least 6 deaths have been blamed on the latest round of winter storms. And this is having an economic impact, too. The city of Boston, Massachusetts, for instance, has spent more than $30 million just to move snow out of the way. Well, at least it's almost over, right? Wrong. Forecasters say another winter storm could be on the way at the end of the week, but it's too early to tell if that'll materialize. Since Sunday, there's officially been a ceasefire between Ukrainian government troops and the pro-Russian rebels who've been fighting them. But in some parts of Ukraine, the fire has not ceased. And even though the international community is calling on both sides to stop fighting, to respect the terms of this ceasefire, in some areas, the Ukrainian military and the pro-Russian separatists say they're not backing down. It's possible that the truce agreed to last week is falling apart.
The ceasefire remains elusive in this town. These fighters load their weapons with great care, then head to the front line. We're on the road here with a Ukrainian battalion called the East Corpus Battalion, and they say that they still get shelled all the time, that there's attacks from pro-Russian separatists, and that they're doing their best to try and hold this town, but they've already lost a considerable amount of it to the pro-Russian separatists in the past couple of days. Right now, only about a third of the village is under our control, machine gunner Yuri says. With pro-Russian separatists close by, we need to move carefully and frequently run for cover. So the men tell us we have to really watch out here because apparently there's a sniper, they believe, somewhere in the distance over there. They say they take fire here pretty much every day and several times a day. So they really don't believe in the ceasefire that's going on. They say it never really took hold here. The ceasefire is a farce, says Commander Oleg Shiryayev. The fighting is continuing now the way it did before. They continue to attack us, shell us, they use artillery and mortars, and sometimes they launch raids. It's impossible to tell which side is responsible for breaking the ceasefire here, but to the few civilians we saw, that didn't seem to matter. They were packing any belongings they could and leaving. The fighting here is very heavy, this woman says. All the windows of our house are broken. It's very terrifying. We saved all our lives to buy our house, and now we have nothing. To get back to safety, the fighters lob a smoke grenade to mask our retreat.
Time for the shout out. Which of these languages is the oldest? If you think you know it, shout it out. Is it Spanish, Dutch, Romanian, or Afrikaans? You've got 3 seconds. Go. The Spanish language, also known as Castilian, dates back to the 9th century, making it the oldest language on this list. That's your answer, and that's your shout out.
According to the U.S. Census Bureau, more than 17% of the U.S. population is Hispanic or Latino. It's about 54 million people, making those of Hispanic origin the largest ethnic or race minority in the country. So it's probably no surprise that politicians would want to reach that group. But does speaking Spanish sway Hispanic voters one way or the other?
There's a big debate over how you reach Latinos.
I want to just say a few words in Spanish. The cameras here are going to cover this. I don't want them to tell them what I said. I want to say it myself.
Some call it pandering, some calling outreach. There was a day where outreach was based on having mariachis, on repeating 2 or 3 sentences.
Si se puede! Si se puede!
And that's not necessarily what convinces people. A lot of people who come to the States later in life and try to learn English have a real hard time. They're afraid to put themselves out there, to embarrass themselves by mispronouncing words. So seeing a politician do it, I think brings politicians to a level that people can identify with.
Es como esta Cámara puede debatir.
Now, it's easy to make fun of Mayor Bloomberg.
Estamos tomando precauciones para que todos.
The fact that he's willing to go out there brings him closer to the people who don't speak English fluently. Jeb Bush was governor in Florida. It's very helpful to speak Spanish in South Florida.
Tenemos esposas muy bellas.
I think the thing he has in common with his brother is that they understand the Latino culture, that they know how to speak to Latinos.
Gracias. Siéntese.
It's played them well, and it's going to play well Jeb Bush if he ends up being the Republican nominee. When he launched a PAC recently, he had a video in English and then he had a video in Spanish.
Hoy estamos estableciendo un PAC.
People see that he knows the language, that he cares, that he understands. At least he wants to speak to them. It's more a party thing than a candidate thing. Former President Clinton is still very popular among Latinos, and he doesn't speak Spanish.
Agradezco a los mexicanos.
But he did get a lot of support. Their issues and the way they present them are going to be a lot more important than if they speak the language.
En las palabras del vicepresidente Joe Biden,
or don't speak the language.
Qué placer estar aquí con tantos amigos.
Having someone say it in Espanol will help, but it will not define a candidacy. It will not sway the vote. People are not going to vote for someone just because they sound like them, or they look like them, or they have a Hispanic last name.
Welcome to the CNN Student News Roll Call. One source for these schools, our transcript page at cnnstudentnews.com. West Nottoway High School, we're calling on the Rockets. They're in Burlington Junction, Missouri. Next, the Dodgers of Dodgeville. That's fun to say. Dodgeville Middle School is in Dodgeville, Wisconsin. And we wrap up our roll in Morocco. Great to hear from the Casablanca American School. It's in Casablanca. The challenge, replace the Alaskan Way Viaduct, a major bridge in downtown Seattle, Washington. It's simply worn out. The method, bore a giant underground tunnel beneath the city. The tool, Bertha, a massive digging machine built in Japan. The problem, Bertha broke down, and repairing a drill this massive takes an engineering feat in itself.
This is Bertha, one of the world's biggest digging machines. Bertha's tall, as high as a 5-story building. It measures about as long as a football field, and it was named after Bertha Knight Landis, Seattle's first woman mayor. But Bertha has a big problem. For more than a year, it's been sitting broken and useless, 60 feet underneath the city's downtown. The problems all started in 2013 when Bertha began digging a 1.7-mile highway tunnel using its 260 red and yellow tungsten carbide teeth. Bertha's internal conveyor system moved massive amounts of dirt to the surface for removal. Then, after tunneling about 1,000 feet, Bertha's bearings failed and it started overheating. So, the digging stopped until engineers could figure out how to fix it. Here's the solution they came up with. Workers dug a vertical shaft 12 stories deep and lined it with concrete. Next, engineers will fire Bertha back up and send it boring down through that concrete wall and into the shaft. Then, they'll hoist its 2,000-ton cutting face to the surface. They'll fix it, and then they'll lower it back into the tunnel. Engineers hope Bertha will be able to dig the tunnel's remaining 1.5 miles. Will it work? Will Bertha come through in the end? There's a lot at stake. Failure will hike the price tag of the $2 billion project even higher and delay its completion even longer.
Basketball buzzer beaters are always fun, at least for the team that gets them. But this one's nothing short of amazing. Why? Because it's made from half court. This happened at an event for wounded U.S. service members at Fort Belvoir. Wheelchair basketball is one of the events that dozens of American athletes compete in. It helps determine who will advance to a major Department of Defense competition this summer. We'd say that guy's got a pretty good shot. Makes sense he'd get a lot of buzz for it. It netted him some nationwide attention. I'm Carl Azu. CNN Student News rebounds tomorrow.